Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, and this video is about the teacher shortage in the United Kingdom. The government in England, and I do mean England, recently announced that it's got a severe paucity of teachers, and the problem is due to get worse. In Scotland, this problem has also been observed in the past few years. Not sure about Northern Ireland and Wales. Would surprise me if they didn't have this problem in common with the rest of the UK. In England, the recruitment targets for teachers have been missed for the past 5 years in a row. And in certain subjects, the situation is even more acute than one might imagine. It's very grave in anything like biology, well, not biology so much, chemistry, physics, mathematics, IT, business, anything mathematically allied. So why is that? Well, there are not enough graduates in those subjects anyway. They can get very handsomely remunerated jobs in the private sector, in finance and so on. So if someone is a graduate in something like chemistry or IT, why would he or she choose to be a teacher? They might wish to, but in some cases, because they've done so badly, they can't get a job in anything else. Don't wish to imply that all science and IT teachers are bad. So people are staying away from teaching in droves. There's a huge dropout rate, people in the first few years of teaching. A lot of teachers are going to retire very soon, and there are not so many people coming through in the younger generation. The job market is rosy, so that's why not so many people are going into teaching. 10 years ago, when there was a crash, a lot of people went into teaching because they felt it was a safe sector to work in. One was always guaranteed a job. Why are people leaving teaching? Well, all sorts of reasons. I suppose they are sick of being insulted constantly. One expects some mouthy pupils, but it's got far worse than ever before. Now, I don't wish to suggest that most or even all pupils are bad, but there's a significant minority that is woeful in the United Kingdom, absolutely terrible, the worst you can imagine, with parents to match. When I say being insulted, it's not just by pupils, also by parents and also by politicians shamefully. So teachers are a whipping boy for society's ills. There's only so much a school can do to sort out these things. Parents need to be on board and politicians need to have the right policies, and society as a whole needs to be improving things. It takes a village, as some say. Of course, there are some marvellous pupils who are brainy, who are hardworking, who are courteous, who do everything you'd want. And there's a large minority of pupils who are decent. One shouldn't expect perfect behaviour from pupils, but as I said, there is a large minority that is horrific, be extremely rude, disobedient, argumentative, all the rest of it, bone idle. My goodness. So everybody had a teacher they disliked. I did too. I had several. And so some people can just be hostile to teachers generally, or say so-and-so is dreadful. As a teacher, one can't win. One's either cruel or else feeble. Now, you'd hope surely there's a balance of being firm but fair. But even if one is firm but fair, for some people that's being too strict, and for some people that's being too lax. You just can't win. So that's it. You take your pick. Whatever happens, it's always wrong. Whatever happens is always the teacher's fault, not the pupils, not the parents, not anybody else, not the governments. So there's been grade inflation, which is a problem. Parents expecting higher grades, including in independent schools. Well, we paid for it, we have to get it. And dreadfully disappointed that they don't get very high grades and not expecting them to put in sufficient effort. There's this révolution en permanence in terms of the format of exams constantly change. They never leave it alone, always chopping and changing, just adding this unit or merging 2 units into one, or the layout of the exam is going to be different. They used to do 4 questions, now they're going to do 3, next year it's back to 4, and they never leave it alone. The thing is to invent a decent system and then just leave it, not touch it. The grades were alphabetic, A star, A, B, C, D, now going to be numerical, and there's that. Merging subjects, splitting subjects up. Should history and geography be one or not? Anyway, it's a political piñata. Everybody's got an opinion on this. The situation, it can never be perfect, so they keep faffing around with it, and they don't just let it settle in. And the situation never has a time to bed down. Teachers are just learning the new curriculum, and then they come along and change it. They're the different exam boards, and they make money out of this, and they keep fiddling with it, because then people have to buy the new textbook to reflect the slightly modified format of the exam. And there are all sorts of reasons why people wouldn't go into teaching, would drop out of it. People could be accused of all sorts. The most lurid allegations can be levelled against teachers of paedophilia, of racism, of causing emotional harm and so on. Not to say that this misconduct does not exist, always has, always shall do. Of course, one should try to prevent it. It can never be entirely prevented, and it comes to a stage when the cure is worse than the disease. This is the latest lunacy, that there's emotional harm, that teachers mustn't abuse pupils like that. I remember a deputy headmaster quite a few years ago saying to two 16-year-old bruisers who'd been messing around, idiots. Couldn't do that these days. He's called them idiots. He's caused them emotional harm. I think get over it. I mean, they're almost adults. They need a bit of emotional harm. They should be put in their place, and these put-downs are not allowed. I've been told that children are not naughty. Of course they're naughty. I was naughty. Most children are naughty. It depends to what level. I mean, some of them are absolutely horrendous. Most of them are decent, as you'd expect, mostly good, occasionally a little bit bad, and then some are angelic at the opposite end of the scale. And people who grew up to be vicious criminals, they went to school too. That's only a tiny minority of people who are at school, so don't expect that people who are monstrous can never be minors. Just because someone's a child doesn't make him bad or good, and just because someone's an adult doesn't make that person bad. So we shouldn't assume that children are always completely innocent. They tend to have less self-control, more susceptible to peer pressure, more likely to want to show off, and as an adolescent to be bumptious. So there are severe recruitment problems in teaching, and part of me gloats about it. I think, well, it's small wonder the way teachers have been so badly mistreated by governments, by some parents, by some pupils. And it's a terrible pity, because of course there are many splendid pupils, and I would like everyone to have a suitable education. And it was once a very agreeable lifestyle, 20 or 30 years ago perhaps, but no longer. And people are just drowning in paperwork. Brexit is also going to aggravate this situation. Well, teachers from the Republic of Ireland coming to the UK apparently will still be allowed. You know, modern languages teachers often from France and Spain could be problematic for them. I mean, I have an idea that if people are going to work in shortage sectors like teaching or nursing, they should just be allowed into the UK post-Brexit from EU countries. No paperwork required. So who would go into teaching? I advise people not to. That it's dreadful. There will be a huge amount of frustration. You have to be expected to be insulted every single day. You will not be able to deliver your subject effectively, and that's it. And you're going to be constantly demeaned in the press and by politicians, and that demoralizes people. Teachers are human too. I know it may be hard to believe, but these things get to them. And teachers shouldn't be verbally abused. They deserve to be respected. They do a vital job, an extraordinarily difficult job, and that nobody can do it perfectly. The government is actually making it more difficult, putting obstacles in their path. Moreover, the cost of living in somewhere like London is so high that a teacher's salary isn't good enough for that. I know there's London waiting like an extra 30%, but that's not sufficient. It had to be an extra 100% to reflect the cost of property. Teachers are snowed under with pointless paperwork, and there's a lot of balmy Byzantine bureaucracy. I remember instructions being issued to schools 3.5 times the length of the Bible one year. It was sheer lunacy. How can anybody possibly read all that, absorb all that, implement all that? And then it was like the tail wagging the dog, that the inspectorate was more important than teaching, that all these middle management positions were created, and those were non-jobs. And to justify the existence of all these jobs worths, they had to create more of a workload for the people who are actually at the coalface, the frontline teachers. So the classroom teachers having to produce reams of documentation that were no use to anyone and actually took them away from helping their pupils. And the other problem is the content of PGCs, a lot of it being sub-Marxist jargon and just stacks of paperwork, again, which are utterly worthless. So a lot of futile tasks, and producing hundreds and hundreds of words of essays analysing their own lessons. Some analysis of one's lessons is a good idea. So PGCs are exceptionally difficult, but in the wrong way. They're egregiously difficult in terms of bureaucracy, but not so much in terms of actual academic ability. And there was this daft idea that teachers had to have a 2-2 to get into teaching. Well, you would have virtually no physics, IT, chemistry teachers left if that were the case. And someone doesn't have to be brilliant at their subject, they have to be decent at it to teach it. Usually it's not teaching at a very high level. The subject is actually only a small amount of it. Often it's the psychology, the interpersonal skills, presenting the subject in an engaging way. And of course some people are a bit of a Marmite personality, will really appeal to certain pupils, will repel others, and that's life. One shouldn't expect one's child to like all his or her teachers. So, and there's also another daft policy, and that's keeping pupils in school or some form of training to the age of 18, using it as a holding centre just to keep them off the streets. Education's got little to do with it. Of course, there are many pupils of tremendous academic capability who should stay in education to 18 and far beyond, but others should leave at the earliest opportunity, not be clogging up the schools, frustrating themselves or wasting the teacher's time, which is no use to anyone. So it would take a great deal of political will, which I think is lacking, and the system could be overhauled. My mantra is really back to the 80s. The very early years of GCSE and A-level, I think, were pretty good. Ken Baker brought in INSEAD, which is a bit of a waste of time, teachers having to stay in the holidays to take these pointless courses in various bits of educational gobbledygook. Furthermore, teachers are spending a lot of their holidays producing lots of futile documentation. So there is a way forward, but I don't think that people are going to go for the counter-revolution when we need. And when I say counter-revolution, I really mean nothing short of that. Apart from that, I'm afraid to say the teaching outlook looks very bleak indeed.